Hello, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Maktia XMT03Z 18-volt oscillating multi-tool. So let's get started. Starting at the rear of the tool, we have the 18-volt battery slot, which will accept Maktia 18-volt batteries. Moving forward, we have the orbital stroke rate dial. The low setting is indicated by the 1, and you can gradually increase the speed all the way up to 6, which is the highest. There are plenty of adjustments in between 1 and 6, so you shouldn't have a problem finding the appropriate speed with this multi-tool. Because the dial is recessed, it can be a little bit hard to access when wearing gloves, but it's still not bad overall. And directly behind the dial is the low battery indicator light. The light will blink red when the battery is starting to get low. Moving forward and onto the top of the tool, we have the on-off switch. Pushing the switch forward will turn the tool on, and pulling the switch backward will turn the tool on. This tool does not have a trigger of any kind, so the only way of turning the tool on and off is via the switch. Moving forward, we have the quick change release lever. In order to change the blade on this tool, you simply pull the lever upward into the open position, and then you can remove the pin, and then you can remove the blade. The blades that this tool take, I believe, are the Star or the OIS, but it comes with a universal adapter, so it can pretty much take any kind of multi-tool blade as long as you have the right adapter. So overall, the quick change feature on this, while it isn't as nice as the DeWalt, it is fairly nice, and it's definitely quicker than getting out an Allen key to change the blade. So definitely a nice, convenient feature on this tool. And that is it for the general overview of the tool. Now here's some videos of the tool in action. Okay, let's talk a little bit about multi-tools. Multi-tools are primarily used by people who work around drywall. Whether that's a drywall installer or a plumber or an electrician, people who have to make plunge cuts in the drywall definitely love multi-tools. Me personally, however, I don't do much with drywall, but that doesn't mean I don't have a use for a multi-tool. While the primary use is drywall, they can be extremely useful for trimming down boards, shaving off foam that you've sprayed, or just a number of other purposes. They also are very handy when you're plumbing something with PVC and you need to shave off or make some small gaps in the PVC. It is extremely useful to be able to just grab the multi-tool and make the cut or make the gaps that you need. So definitely a useful tool in that regard. There is one downside to the multi-tools, however, and that is the vibration. Multi-tools, just because of how they're designed and how they operate, produce an amazing amount of vibration. And even the best multi-tools on the market will still vibrate your arm to the point where it feels like it's either about to fall off or enter a different dimension. So it's just the nature of the beast, but it's definitely a beast worth having around, because they really can get you out of all the kinds of different scrapes and binds that you find yourself in when you're building or remodeling. They come in especially handy when you need to make precise cuts or need to do some fast foam removal or even nail removal. Although I personally don't like removing nails with multi-tools, although sometimes you have to. Personally, I prefer using a reciprocating saw whenever I can to remove nails, because I find that reciprocating blades are cheaper than multi-tool blades, and I find that multi-tool blades, even if you buy an expensive blade, because of how short the stroke is or how little it vibrates back and forth, makes it really easy to wear out teeth, making the blade pretty much inoperable after a few nails. So personally, I prefer not to use multi-tools for this, and that's regardless of which multi-tool I'm using. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this multi-tool. In the hand, it feels like a nice quality tool. It doesn't feel like it's cheap anywhere, and it feels solid, and there's nothing on the inside wiggling around or rattling. The rubberized finish is extremely nice, and Makita just has a nice feeling to it, and it has a nice hard plastic which is very hard to scratch or damage. So overall, the build quality is extremely nice. The one area I find a little bit irritating about the build quality, however, is the diameter of the body of the tool or the grip. If you have smaller hands like myself, it can make it a little bit challenging to hold on to, especially if you're working with it above your head or in awkward or tight spaces. Me personally, I would have preferred a smaller diameter. If you have larger hands, you probably won't notice this as much, but if you have smaller hands, it's definitely something you're going to notice while operating the tool. Now, the mode selection, or the on and off button, or the on and off switch I should say, is in a good spot where you can easily access it to turn it on and off. And the dial selector switch is on the rear of the tool on the side, which we covered earlier, and it's in a decent spot. It makes it a little bit tricky to get to if you're working one-handed, but it's not impossible to work with one-handed. So it's definitely a well-designed tool. I just don't like the diameter of it. I would have preferred a smaller diameter. But overall, the build quality is good. Moving on, let's talk about the quick change release lever and its pros and cons. Now, the quick change release lever is a super convenient and definitely a feature I think all multi-tools should have. Now, DeWalt does a better job with this than Makita does, but Makita still is no slacker in this regard either. Now, what makes the Makita worse than the DeWalt, number one, the fact is that the DeWalt is just easier to use, but number two, because of how the lever is situated on the tool itself, makes it impossible to put an LED on the front. I guess you could put one off to the side, but then that would change the shape of the tool and make it hard to get into places. So overall, I really would have preferred maybe a slightly different design, but I definitely would not get rid of it in favor for an Allen key. Ugh, I hate Allen key blades or changes. It just is so much more difficult and time consuming. So overall, it's definitely a good feature, but if it was me, I would have preferred to have something similar to how DeWalt did theirs. But you know, those good old copyrights and patents that are out in the world. So I think Makita did a decent job with their quick release lever. And as I mentioned earlier, there is no trigger. This took a little bit of getting used to, but once you do get used to it, it's perfectly natural, and it really does not affect the performance of this tool, unless you're some sort of art sculptor and you constantly need to be changing the speed of your tool. But for most people, I don't think this is going to be an issue whatsoever. I've owned this tool for about a year now, and I have to say I'm always impressed by how many different uses it has. I've used it on everything from replumbing a pond for cutting PVC all the way up to deconstructing pallets so I can reuse the lumber in other projects. I've used it to scrape off foam from a new shed, and I've used it to install a door guard along the bottom of a door so that I could protect the wood, and it did a great job. And it was a situation where no other tool would work except for this one. So I have to say, overall, I have had 0 second thoughts about owning this tool. It's been a great tool, and I really enjoy using it. So let's talk about the pros and cons. And the first pro is 18 volt. I love 18 volt power tools. I think 18 volt is about the perfect size or perfect voltage for power tools, excluding outdoor power equipment or professional grade cutting saws or drilling or mixing tools. But for most people, 18 volt is more than enough, and for me personally, 18 volt pretty much handles anything I throw at it. So I love 18 volt, and I love 18 volt systems. Build quality. The build quality of this tool is extremely nice. There's nothing on the inside that rattles around, and the tool feels solid in the hands. The rubberized grip is nice, as well as the plastic, which is very scratch resistant. So overall, it's a very professional feeling tool in the hand. Quick change blade. The quick change blade on this is extremely useful and extremely nice to have. It definitely beats having to use an Allen wrench or another tool to change the blade, and it's a feature I think all multi-tools should have, period. So overall, I really do enjoy using the quick change blade on this tool. I know it says 6 speeds, but in reality it's actually more than that because there's different variations between the 6 different speed settings on the multi-tool. So overall, this multi-tool is definitely very versatile, and you'll be able to find the appropriate speed for the current project you are working on. So overall, definitely a pro. And the first meh is price. Now, $120 is not a bad price for a Makita. It's a very well built tool and it feels solid in the hand. And I do think it's worth the price. The problem is a competitor named DeWalt has a multi-tool that is $116, is brushless, has a better quick change blade system, has an LED light, has a better grip, yada yada yada, and it comes in at a lower price of $116. So if you're already in the Makita system, this is not a bad multi-tool. If you're looking to just get a multi-tool for the first time and you're not into any battery system, you might be better off with the DeWalt. And the next meh we have is the size of the tool. If you have smaller hands, this can be a little bit of a challenging tool to hold on to sometimes, especially if you're working in a tight space. So I think if you have larger hands, it'll be perfectly fine, but if you have smaller hands, it's a little bit tricky to use sometimes. So that's why I can't really say it's a pro, nor can I say it's a con. It's just kind of a meh. Brushed. This tool is still using a brush motor, and in the year 2021, I think it's about time that brush motors start going the way of the dinosaur. So, in my opinion, it's not a con yet, but we're starting to get to the territory where most tools should be coming from the factory as brushless. No trigger. I really would have preferred to have a trigger. It's completely usable, and I got used to using it without a trigger. I'm just one of those people that like having a trigger, so that would be kind of a meh in my opinion. And about the only true con I see with this multi-tool is no LED light. Multi-tools are extremely useful, and you can use them in all different kinds of situations. But I think they're especially handy in tight spaces or areas where you can't get full-size saws or other kinds of saws into. So for me personally, not having an LED on here was a very interesting decision, to say the least. AKA stupid in my opinion. So if it was up to me, this should definitely have an LED light. And that is it for the pros and cons. Now, would I recommend this multi-tool? Yes, I would. If you're in the Makita battery system, I would definitely recommend this multi-tool. The problem is that if you are not in the Makita battery system and you're looking to get a multi-tool and you don't have any batteries, I would probably recommend going with a different brand, simply because Makita batteries are expensive, and quite frankly, the design of this multi-tool is starting to show its years and probably needs to go off to the retirement home. There are other competitors which are coming out with multi-tools that have better motors, better features, and better designs, and so I really think that this one is starting to show its age, but it's still a good tool and it still does a good job, so I would recommend it if you need a multi-tool. And that's about it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. God bless.